David had always been enchanted by the unknown, and today, as the shuttle descended onto the lush, alien world of Zaloria, that enchantment was palpable. The landing site was a flat expanse near a large village, bustling with creatures that looked vaguely humanoid from this distance. As the shuttle's engines cooled, the hatch opened with a hiss, flooding the cabin with the fresh, spicy air of the alien planet. "You ever seen anything like this, Marcus?" David asked, turning to his colleague, a fellow xenobiologist who shared his tent for a sense of wonder. Marcus, who had been busy checking his gear, looked up and grinned. "Never in my wildest dreams, David. It's like stepping into a whole new chapter of existence." They grabbed their equipment and stepped onto the soil of Zaloria, a moment neither would forget. The village was a short walk from their landing site, and as they approached, they could see the Zalorians watching them with cautious curiosity. "Keep it friendly, keep it slow," David reminded Marcus, adjusting the universal translator clipped to his shirt. As they entered the village, a group of Zalorians approached. One stepped forward, taller than the others, with bright, intelligent eyes. "Welcome, travelers," he said in perfect, if accented English. "I am Jor-El, the leader of this community." David extended a hand, a gesture he hoped was universal. "Thank you for having us, Jor-El. I'm David, and this is Marcus. We're here to learn, not to intrude." Jor-El took David's hand, shaking it firmly. "Curiosity is a trait we cherish. What brings you to Zaloria? We study life, different forms of it. We hope to learn about your culture, your people." Marcus chimed in, his voice friendly and open. Jor-El nodded, signaling for the visitors to follow him. "We have much to share. Our ways are likely different from yours, but understanding is the path to harmony." As they walked through the village, David noticed the intricate carvings on the buildings, each telling its own story. "These carvings, they're incredible. What do they represent?" he asked, genuinely intrigued. Jor-El's face lit up with pride. "Each carving represents a story from our history, lessons we've learned. We value our history deeply, as it teaches us about our future." Marcus took out his camera, gesturing politely before taking any photos. "Do you mind if I take pictures?" "Only for our records, to aid in our studies." "Please feel free," Jor-El replied. "Sharing knowledge is important. We also wish to learn from you. The devices you carry, the clothes you wear, different yet similar." As they reached the center of the village, a group of younger Zalorians ran up to them, their eyes wide with fascination. David knelt to meet them at eye level. "Hi there, I'm David," he said, smiling. One little girl, bolder than the rest, stepped forward. "I'm Lyra," she declared. "What's that?" She pointed at David's handheld scanner. "This helps me learn about the plants and animals here. Would you like to see how it works?" David offered. Lyra nodded eagerly, and the other children gathered around. David activated the scanner and pointed it at a nearby flower. Data streamed onto the screen, showing the flower's biological makeup. "So, every plant, every tree here has its own story, just like your carvings," David explained, watching the children's faces light up with understanding. "Yes," Lyra said, "and now you're part of our story too." The day wore on with more exchanges of culture and technology. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the village, David and Marcus knew they had started something special, a true exchange of knowledge and friendship. As they returned to their temporary camp that evening, the cool air settling around them, Marcus looked over at David. "You think every day is going to be like this?" David chuckled softly, his eyes reflecting the last light of the Zalorian sun. "I hope so, Marcus. I really do hope so." David and Marcus woke up early the next morning, eager to continue their new interactions with the Zalorians. After a quick breakfast, they gathered their gear and headed back to the village. "Plan for today?" Marcus asked as they walked, his boots crunching softly on the undergrowth. "Let's split up. You check out the flora on the north side. I'll head back to the village, see if I can assist with anything, get more face time with the locals," David suggested, adjusting his pack. "Sounds good. Meet back here at sunset." "Perfect." David reached the village just as the Zalorians were beginning their day. Jor-El spotted him first, beckoning him over. "David, good to see you. Interested in our morning rituals?" "I'd love to join," David replied, his interest piqued. Jor-El led him to a large, open area where several Zalorians were gathering. They sat in a circle, and Jor-El motioned for David to sit beside him. We begin each day with the sharing of minds. It's a way to ensure harmony and understanding within our community, Jor-El explained. David watched, fascinated, as one Zalorian after another shared their thoughts, their dreams from the night, and any concerns they had. It was an intimate glimpse into their culture and community bonding practices. Would you like to share something, David? Jor-El asked, turning to him with a welcoming smile. Caught slightly off guard, David nodded. Thank you, Jor-El. I'm grateful to be here with you all. Back on Earth, we often get so caught up in our daily lives. We forget to connect like this. I'm learning a lot from you. The Zalorians listened attentively, nodding and murmuring words of welcome. When the ritual concluded, a young Zalorian approached David. He introduced himself as Talon, a local craftsman. Talon tells me he's interested in your equipment, the technology you use, Jor-El translated. Would you like a demonstration? David asked, intrigued by the chance to exchange knowledge. Talon nodded eagerly, and they spent the next hour discussing the various devices and their uses. David showed him the environmental sensors and explained how they gathered data. Talon, in turn, showed David some of the tools he used in crafting, explaining the materials sourced from their environment. Meanwhile, Marcus explored the lush northern forest, cataloging plant species and collecting samples. He was so engrossed in his work that he barely noticed the time passing until he saw a Zalorian watching him curiously from a distance. Hello there, Marcus called out, waving. I'm Marcus. The Zalorian hesitated but approached slowly. I am Kale, he said, his voice cautious but friendly. Mind if I show you what I'm doing? Marcus offered, and Kale nodded. As Marcus explained his work, Kale grew visibly more interested, asking pointed questions about the plant's uses on Earth. Back in the village, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, David and Talon wrapped up their session. Your knowledge is vast, David. It is much to think about, Talon said, his expression thoughtful. Yours as well, Talon. I've learned a lot today, David replied, feeling a profound sense of connection. As David and Marcus met up at their designated meeting spot, both were buzzing with excitement about their day's experiences. Made a new friend? David teased, seeing Marcus's enthusiastic expression. Absolutely, Marcus laughed. Kale is quite the botanist. Learn a lot about the local medicinal plants. How about you? Spent the day with Talon. We exchanged quite a bit of knowledge about our tech and his crafting. This is turning out to be more rewarding than I imagined. Both men walked back to their camp, their minds full of new ideas and a deeper respect for the Zalorian way of life. As they settled in for the night, the sky alight with stars, they shared a comfortable silence, each reflecting on the day's rich exchanges and the bridges they were building. As the days turned into weeks, David and Marcus found their rhythm with the Zalorians. Each morning began with them joining the village's sharing of minds, which they now participated in actively, sharing insights from Earth and their daily experiences on Zaloria. This particular morning, after the communal gathering, Marcus pulled out a small device from his bag. David, I've been tweaking this portable translator to better handle the nuances of the Zalorian language. Want to test it out today? David looked intrigued. Definitely. It'll help a lot with the deeper conversations we've been trying to have. Armed with the new device, they approached Jor-El, who was speaking with a group of villagers about a community project. Good morning, Jor-El, David greeted, clipping the device to his shirt. Jor-El smiled. Good morning, David. Marcus. What do you have there? Marcus explained, it's a translator we've been improving. We hope it captures your language better, makes our communication clearer. That would be most helpful, Jor-El agreed, his eyes reflecting a spark of curiosity. The morning progressed with David and Marcus splitting up to engage with different parts of the community. David accompanied Talon to his workshop, where they continued their exchange on crafting techniques. So, Talon, these tools are made from local materials? David asked, examining a beautifully carved handle. Yes, all from materials provided by the forest. This handle comes from the branch of a yarlin tree, very strong and light, Talon explained, his hands expertly demonstrating the carving technique. David nodded, fascinated. On Earth, we use a variety of materials as well. Metals, plastics. But there's a growing movement back to natural materials, similar to your practices. Talon looked pleased. It seems there is much we can learn from each other. Meanwhile, Marcus had joined Kale in the fields where the Zalorians cultivated various crops. Kale was showing Marcus how they used natural fertilizers to enhance growth without harming the environment. See, we use the crushed shells of Nutera beetles. They enrich the soil significantly, Kale explained, handing Marcus a handful of the rich, dark soil. Marcus, examining the soil, was impressed. We have similar practices, but sometimes we rely too much on chemical enhancers. Your methods are inspiring, more sustainable. Kale smiled broadly. Perhaps you could teach us about your chemical enhancers, and we can share more about our organic methods? Absolutely, Marcus agreed, excited about the mutual exchange of knowledge. Later that day, the village held a feast to celebrate the successful integration of the humans into their community. David and Marcus were invited to sit at Jor-El's side, an honor they accepted with gratitude. During the feast, Jor-El raised his glass. To David and Marcus, who have shown us the beauty of sharing and learning. May our friendship continue to grow. David responded, lifting his own glass. To the people of Zaloria, who have welcomed us with open hearts and minds. We are far from home, but you have made us feel like we belong. The feast continued into the night with music, dancing, and laughter. David and Marcus mingled with the villagers, their conversations aided by the improved translators, deepening their understanding of each other's cultures. As the night wound down, Marcus leaned over to David. I think we're doing something really special here. It's not just about the science anymore. It's about building something lasting. David nodded in agreement, his eyes taking in the joyful scene around them. Yeah, it's about the people, their stories. We're not just visitors. We're part of their community now. As they walked back to their camp under the starlit sky, both men felt a profound connection to Zaloria and its inhabitants, a connection that transcended the boundaries of worlds and species. Early the next morning, after a peaceful night's sleep filled with the sounds of the Zalorian wilderness, David and Marcus were back in the village, energized and ready for a new day of cultural exchange. The atmosphere in the village was abuzz with the daily activities of its inhabitants, and the two men were quickly swept up in the rhythm of life here. David, who had developed a keen interest in Zalorian music after hearing their evening songs, approached Jor-El with a question. Jor-El, I was wondering if you could tell me more about the instruments I saw during the feast. The sounds are hauntingly beautiful. Ah, you mean the Zealer pipes? They are special to us. Would you like to try playing one? Jor-El offered, his face brightening with enthusiasm. I would love to, David replied, his curiosity piqued. Jor-El led David to a small house where the instruments were made and kept. Inside, an elderly Zalorian named Halen was carefully tuning one of the pipes. Halen looked up and smiled, his eyes twinkling. Jor-El tells me you are interested in our music. Let me show you how to play. Meanwhile, Marcus had joined a group of Zalorians led by Kale in the community garden, discussing the various uses of local plants. Kale was demonstrating how to extract juice from a Falara leaf, known for its healing properties. As you see, just a gentle squeeze releases the juice. It's effective for treating cuts and burns, Kale explained, handing Marcus a leaf to try. This is similar to aloe back on Earth, Marcus observed, carefully mimicking Kale's actions. It's amazing how different worlds find similar solutions to common problems. Yes, the universe is wise that way, Kale agreed, smiling. Back in the music house, Halen had handed David a Zealer pipe, explaining the technique required to produce the ethereal sounds. David attempted to mimic the movements, his initial awkward sounds eventually giving way to smoother, more melodious tones. Like this? David asked, a bit unsure, but enjoying the process immensely. Exactly like that, Halen approved, clapping his hands lightly. You have a feel for it? David continued to practice, feeling a connection to the Zalorian culture through the music. His attempts brought laughter and encouragement from Halen and Jor-El, fostering a joyful atmosphere. As the day wore on, David and Marcus reconvened to share their experiences. David recounted his musical adventures, while Marcus described the botanical knowledge he had gained. "It's fascinating," Marcus noted, "how their traditional medicine parallels some of our own back home, yet it's so uniquely adapted to their environment." David nodded in agreement. "And the music, it's more than just sound. It's like a language of its own." Halen was showing me how each melody tells a story or marks an event in their history. Their respect for nature and tradition really comes through in everything they do, Marcus added, reflecting on the day's lessons. As the sun began to set, the two friends sat outside their temporary home, discussing plans to compile their findings into a comprehensive study on Zalorian culture. "We should include an audio recording of the music and detailed notes on the medicinal uses of the plants," David suggested, eager to document the rich cultural tapestry they were experiencing. "Agreed," Marcus said, pulling out his notebook. "Let's also outline how these practices contribute to their community's sustainability and resilience. There's so much the Earth can learn from Zaloria." That evening, as they jotted down their thoughts and observations, the sounds of Zalorian music drifted over from the village, a reminder of the deep and meaningful connections they were forming far from home. The following week, David and Marcus continued to immerse themselves in the life of the Zalorian village. The deeper they delved into the community, the more they felt an integral part of its daily rhythms. One sunny morning, David found himself assisting Talon in the crafts workshop, learning more about the intricate designs that were emblematic of Zalorian culture. Meanwhile, Marcus planned to spend the day with Kale, diving deeper into the environmental strategies employed by the villagers. "Marcus, would you like to join me at the river today?" Kale asked, approaching him with a friendly smile. "We are checking the water purification systems. It could be interesting for your studies." "Absolutely. I'd love to see how you manage that," Marcus responded eagerly, grabbing his notebook and camera. As they walked towards the river, Marcus observed the lush landscape, filled with vibrant plants and bustling wildlife. "Your people seem to have a profound connection with nature," he remarked. "Yes, our survival depends on it. We've developed systems that ensure we take care of our environment while it takes care of us," Kale explained, leading him to a series of natural filtration pools. Back at the workshop, David was carefully carving a piece of wood under Talon's guidance. "You have a steady hand," Talon noted, watching David's cautious efforts. "Thanks to a good teacher," David chuckled, examining his work. "The patterns are quite complex. They remind me of our Celtic knots back on Earth. Perhaps it's a universal language, patterns that tell stories," Talon mused, handing David another tool to try a different technique. The conversation between David and Talon drifted from artistic techniques to personal stories, bridging the gap between their worlds. "It's amazing how art can connect different cultures," David observed, feeling a deeper kinship with the Zalorian craftsman. Meanwhile, at the river, Kale showed Marcus the biotic indicators they use to assess water quality. "These small creatures thrive only in clean water. Their presence is a good sign," Kale pointed out, scooping a sample from the water. "That's similar to our use of bioindicators," Marcus noted, intrigued by the parallel practices. "It's efficient and environmentally friendly." "Yes, and it helps us keep our ecosystem in balance without sophisticated technology," Kale added, his pride in their methods evident. As the day wore on, Marcus and David reconvened in the village center, each buzzing with new knowledge and appreciation for Zalorian methods. "Did you see their water system? It's ingenious yet so simple," Marcus shared, his excitement palpable. "And I've been carving all day." "Look at this," David said, showing Marcus a nearly finished piece that resembled the Zalorian patterns. "Talon says it's a traditional blessing pattern." "That's beautiful, David. You're really getting the hang of it," Marcus complimented, genuinely impressed. The day closed with a communal dinner, where David and Marcus were now regular guests. The villagers treated them not just as visitors, but as part of their community, sharing freely and listening eagerly to the stories from Earth that David and Marcus brought to the table. After dinner, Jor-El approached them with a warm smile. "You both have brought so much joy and curiosity to our village. It's as if you've always been a part of us." "We feel the same, Jor-El. This exchange has been more rewarding than we could have imagined," David replied, his voice filled with gratitude. "Here's to many more days of learning and sharing," Marcus toasted, raising his cup filled with a local beverage. As they walked back to their lodgings under the starry sky, both men reflected on the bonds they had formed. It wasn't just about scientific or anthropological research anymore. It was about the profound human and Zalorian connections that enriched their hearts just as much as their minds. David and Marcus began the next day with a plan to delve deeper into Zalorian celebrations and rituals, hoping to participate in and document the rich cultural tapestry they had observed. As they joined the villagers in the central square, they were greeted by Jor-El, who seemed particularly enthusiastic. "Today is special," Jor-El explained. "We celebrate the Harmony Festival, a time when we honor the balance of nature and the unity of our community. It would be an honor for you to join us." "We'd be delighted to," Marcus responded, his voice reflecting genuine excitement. David nodded in agreement, both eager to experience their first Zalorian festival. As preparations got underway, David and Marcus were invited to assist in setting up the festival decorations. They worked alongside Talon and a few other villagers, stringing up lights and arranging floral displays. Each flower represents a different aspect of Zalorian life. Talon shared as he handed David a vibrant, purple blossom. "This one symbolizes wisdom." Fascinated, David arranged the flowers with care, while Marcus helped set up a series of small, delicate lanterns. "Back on Earth, we use lights like these during many celebrations," Marcus commented, tying a lantern to a low-hanging branch. "Yes, light is a universal symbol of clarity and celebration," Jor-El added, joining the conversation. "It seems our cultures are not so different in the ways we express joy and gratitude." As the festival began, the air filled with the soft melody of Zealer pipes, and the villagers gathered in a large circle. Jor-El motioned for David and Marcus to join him at the center. "Now we share the dance of harmony," Jor-El announced, the music picking up in tempo. "It is a dance that moves with the music of the pipes, symbolizing the flow of life and the balance we strive to maintain with nature." David and Marcus followed Jor-El's lead, quickly picking up the rhythm and steps of the dance. The villagers clapped and cheered them on, their faces alight with joy. After the dance, the festival continued with a feast. Marcus and David were seated next to Jor-El, who served them a variety of Zalorian dishes, each with its own story. "This dish is made from the roots of the Yarlin tree, harvested at the peak of its nutritional value," Jor-El explained, offering them a taste. "It's a reminder of the Earth's generosity." "It's delicious," Marcus commented, savoring the unique flavors. "It's incredible how much we can learn from the way your community lives in sync with the environment." As the evening progressed, David and Marcus mingled with the villagers, exchanging stories and laughter. The warmth and openness of the Zalorians made them feel more at home than they had anticipated. Later, sitting by a fire with Jor-El and a few others, David shared his thoughts. "Participating in your festival, learning your dances and songs, it's given us a deeper appreciation for Zaloria. It's a beautiful way to celebrate life." Jor-El nodded, smiling warmly. "And having you here has enriched our celebration. Sharing our culture, our values. It's a gesture of trust and friendship." As the festival wound down, Marcus looked around at the happy faces lit by firelight. "This is the kind of experience that changes you," he said to David, who nodded in agreement. "Definitely. It's not just about documenting another culture," David replied. "It's about being part of it, even if just for a little while." Walking back to their lodgings under the starlit sky, David and Marcus felt a profound connection not only to the Zalorian culture, but also to each other and the shared journey they had embarked on. They had come as researchers, but they were leaving as part of a community, forever changed by the universal language of celebration and harmony. After the Harmony Festival, life in the Zalorian village seemed even more vibrant and connected for David and Marcus. They had become familiar faces among the villagers, embraced as part of the community, and were often invited to participate in daily routines and special events. On a particularly crisp morning, Marcus joined Kale at the edge of the village, where the young Zalorian was preparing to teach a group of children about local wildlife. Meanwhile, David had arranged to spend the day with Jor-El, learning more about Zalorian governance and social organization. As they walked toward the community center, Jor-El explained. Our leadership does not govern by power, but by consensus. It is a dialogue, ever-evolving. David, recording notes, nodded thoughtfully. It's a dynamic way to lead. In many human societies, leadership is more hierarchical. Yes, I've read about such systems, Jor-El replied. Our way ensures every voice matters, especially in decisions that affect everyone. Meanwhile, Marcus was crouched down with the children, showing them how to gently handle a small, docile creature that resembled a cross between a squirrel and a lizard. This little fellow is called a Tiri. It's important to be gentle, to respect its space just as we respect each other's, he explained, helping a small boy carefully pet the animal. Kale watched with a smile, then turned to Marcus. You have a good way with the children. They listen to you. Marcus laughed softly. I like to think I'm just a big kid at heart. Plus, I had a lot of practice with my nieces and nephews back home. Back at the community center, David and Jor-El sat with a few elders, discussing recent changes in village policies. So, you adapt your policies based on the collective feedback of the community? David asked, intrigued. Exactly, an elder named Harvin interjected. It keeps our society fluid, responsive to the needs of the people. As the sun began to set, the village gathered for an impromptu musical evening. David and Marcus, now somewhat accustomed to Zalorian customs, were eager to join in. The community center was filled with laughter and the soft strumming of Zalorian string instruments. Jor-El handed David a Zealer pipe. Would you like to play with us tonight? He invited. David, a little nervous but excited, accepted the pipe. He had practiced a bit since his last attempt and hoped to do the instrument justice. As the music started, he blew into the pipe, this time producing a melodious, harmonious sound that blended well with the other instruments. Marcus, sitting among the villagers clapping along, caught David's eye and gave him a thumbs up, his face beaming with pride. After the musical session, as they walked back to their lodgings, Lyra approached them, her eyes wide with curiosity. You're doing this daily? She asked David, referring to his participation in their cultural activities. David chuckled. Not every day, but yes, quite often. It's part of how we learn and connect. Lyra seemed fascinated. It's nice. You bring new songs, new stories. It makes things fun. We feel the same, Lyra, Marcus added. Every day is a new adventure, a new lesson. As they reached their quarters, David reflected on Lyra's words. Doing this daily, being part of something so enriching. Imagine if we could maintain this kind of learning and interaction back on Earth. Marcus nodded. It's about finding joy in the small moments and learning and sharing. It's something I hope we can take back with us. The night ended with both men feeling a deep appreciation for the lives they were leading on Zaloria. Lives filled with learning, sharing, and an ever-deepening connection to the world around them and to each other. They had not only immersed themselves in an alien culture, but had found within it universal themes of community, learning, and joy. As the time for David and Marcus to conclude their stay on Zaloria approached, the entire village began preparations for a farewell ceremony. The air was filled with a bittersweet energy, as both the humans and Zalorians were sad about the impending departure, but grateful for the shared time and experiences. Early in the morning, Jor-El visited David and Marcus at their lodging. We are planning a special ceremony for you tonight. It's our way of honoring those who have become part of our community, he explained, his tone a mixture of joy and melancholy. We're honored, Jor-El, David replied, feeling emotional. Our time here has changed us in ways we never imagined. Marcus nodded in agreement. It's been an incredible journey. We've learned so much, not just about Zaloria, but about ourselves. As the day progressed, David and Marcus helped the villagers with the preparations. They gathered flowers and decorative plants, while others prepared food and set up a large gathering space in the center of the village. During the preparations, Talon approached David with a gift, a small sculpture made from the wood of a yarlin tree. I made this for you, to remember us by, Talon said, his voice steady, but his eyes revealing his sadness. David accepted the sculpture, deeply touched. Thank you, Talon. I will treasure this always. Meanwhile, Marcus and Kale were setting up seating arrangements when Kale handed Marcus a bound collection of drawings. The children made these for you. Each drawing is a memory of the moments you shared with them, Kale explained, helping Marcus flip through the colorful pages. This means the world to me, Kale. Please tell them how much I appreciate it, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. As sunset approached, the villagers and their human friends gathered for the ceremony. Jor-El stood in the center, calling everyone to join hands. Tonight, we celebrate David and Marcus, who came to us as strangers but now leave as family, Jor-El announced, looking around the circle. David and Marcus each took a turn to speak, expressing their gratitude and the profound impact their stay had on their lives. I came here as a scientist, David began, but I leave as someone who has seen the true beauty of sharing lives and cultures. And I, Marcus added, came seeking knowledge, but I found wisdom, not just in the environment, but in the hearts of all of you. The ceremony included traditional Zalorian songs, and this time, David and Marcus joined in with more confidence, their voices blending seamlessly with those of the villagers. After the singing, the feast began, filled with laughter and shared stories. Throughout the evening, many villagers approached David and Marcus, offering thanks and small tokens of remembrance. As the night drew to a close, Jor-El pulled David and Marcus aside. You have taught us as much as we have taught you. This exchange of knowledge and culture enriches us all. We'll carry these lessons with us forever, Marcus replied, his eyes scanning the crowd of now familiar faces. And we hope to return one day, to see how things have evolved and to share more of our lives, David added, his hand resting on Jor-El's shoulder. The farewell lasted well into the night, under a sky lit by stars and the soft glow of Zalorian lanterns. When the time finally came to say goodbye, it was a long series of hugs and handshakes, each one more heartfelt than the last. Walking back to their quarters for the last time, David and Marcus were silent, each lost in his thoughts about the journey and the morrow's return to Earth. This isn't just a goodbye, it's a see you later, David finally said, breaking the silence. Definitely, Marcus agreed, looking back at the village. We're leaving a piece of ourselves here, and taking a piece of Zaloria with us. They spent their last night on Zaloria, reflecting on their adventures, ready to bring their experiences back to Earth, enriched and transformed by the unexpected journey that had taught them about alien cultures, friendship, and the universal values of sharing and community.